I'll tell you what, it's a nice change of pace for the Red Wings now, who are 2-0 at the time of the recording, going for 3-0 against the Los Angeles Kings, and we are about to bring in Shae Brophy, who you mentioned earlier. So I don't know if you want to give him a more proper introduction, but he is waiting on our count to roll out the red carpet for him.
I'm pretty sure you just did it. Bring the man in. Wait, I'm not even ready. Like, damn it, Shae, I'm not ready for you yet. I got a different jersey on. Now I got to throw a hockey sweater over a basketball jersey. Who booked this? Who did this? This is not professional.
Just throwing up your Tupac business.
How's it going?
What up, Shae?
Stand by.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, buddy.
So, it's always good to talk hockey, especially when the Wings are 2-0, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, buddy.
Damn right.
Talking about going for 3 against the Kings.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have been watching the game. It's 1-1 right now. Adam Ernie had a snipe of a goal so far tonight.
No kidding. Already getting into 1-1 already, huh? Yeah, we're a little busy, running a show. We ain't got it like that with ESPN, where we got TVs all in front of us and behind us and all that, where we can just watch everything going on. Now, we ain't that rich yet. We'll have to talk to Jeff about that. Get some extra TVs put in our rooms.
We'll get there.
All right, Shae. So you have been the resident hockey man at DSN for a while. And we wanted to definitely get you, especially with hockey season finally underway, wanted to get you on here a few different times to talk about our beloved Red Wings, and just kind of find out, where we are, what our expectations should be coming into this year. We have talked about this a few different times, Ryan and I and the other guys, when we had our podcast, Sports Carnage, where we were talking about that it's seasons of hope for the Detroit fan base in general, between the Tigers, the Pistons, the Lions, and the Red Wings, where the 4 teams have been so bad for so long. The Red Wings were so great for so long, and instead of getting ahead of the curve, they tried to hold on for as long as they possibly could to that greatness, and it just took a terrible turn that everybody should have expected, but nobody did. And now we are digging our way out of that hole, and so, my hope is, that it seems like for Detroit, who has been so bad for so long, just in professional sports in general, we're at a point where it looks like a bright future is coming, where maybe all 4 teams are good at the same time, where maybe we could be like Boston of the early 2000s, where like everything worked for the Red Sox and the Patriots and the Bruins and the Celtics. And like, I'm hoping we can get the same thing for the Pistons and the Red Wings and the Tigers and the Lions. The Lions, we'll see. But the Red Wings, what should expectations be this year under brand new head coach? Second year, third year, second year with Yzerplan, third year, second, third. They're all melting together now.
Right. So that's a great question, Matt. It's a good one to start with. For me, the biggest thing I'm looking for out of the team this year, I don't want to put a points total on it, or they're going to be this much better than they were last year. I just want to see improvement, especially from the younger guys on the team. They've finally got a good young core developed, we're trying to get it developed, but we've got it established. You've got young guys, Dylan Larkin, Bertuzzi, who of course is out for the next 4 to 6 weeks now, but you've got Lucas Raymond and Mo Sider as well, and then other guys that you've drafted since Stevie Y got there. So for me this year, the biggest thing to look for the team as a whole, to show that they're starting to move this thing in the right direction, it's not a certain points number, it's just improvement.
Definitely makes sense. Ryan?
Yeah, so how long until we can start judging the results instead of just the improvement? How long of a leash does Yzerman get? Because I know the homecoming, the Yzerplan, all of that, he can't hear.
Yep.
When does if the Wings keep being bad, because it sounds like you think they're going to be pretty bad, at least this year, and didn't the coach just come out and say the other day, you don't gain 25 points in one season?
Yep.
So even he might not have such high expectations for his team this year. So when can Wings fans expect to be in contention again, to be in the conference finals, to maybe be sniffing Stanley Cups?
Well, let's go one step at a time, buddy. Let's start talking playoffs before we start talking about sniffing Stanley Cups.
This is Detroit.
So for me, that's such a loaded question, because there's so many different ways you can go with it right now. You can talk about what's the team look like 5 years from now. what's it look like next year? Right now, Dylan Larkin and Tyler Bertuzzi aren't under contract next year, and that's been a hot topic. Sounds like, both of them are going to stick around. I know Larkin says all the time he doesn't want to play anywhere else. We've been down some tough negotiation roads with Tyler Bertuzzi in the past. Is he going to be around long term? Is he a guy that you see as a long-term piece in the core of this team? Those are kind of the questions that you have to start talking about before you look at where the overall direction of the team is going. As far as a leash for Stevie Y on this whole thing, I mean, it's hard to say, like, this has got to be the year. This is year 3 of the Yzerplan. It's not something that just comes together overnight, as we know, being fans of Detroit sports. These things take a long time, 35 years in some cases for other teams in Detroit. But at this point, I'm not going to say, like, it's this year or it's next year. It's just recency bias is a thing for Detroit fans. I think that a lot of us are still kind of living through what we saw Al Avila do to the Tigers over the last few years, and that's left a pretty sour taste in a lot of our mouths. Stevie Y has done great things as a general manager in the National Hockey League, and we've already seen some of that stuff since he's came over here just in 3 years. His first draft pick when he took over for the Red Wings, Mo Seider, number 6 overall. I remember watching that draft that night, and there were guys on the board. 3 years is a long time. I can't remember who it was exactly. But when 6 overall came up and it was Mo Seider that was announced as the pick, I'm a hockey guy. I didn't know who Mo Seider was. So I hear that name come up at number 6 overall for my team, and I'm like, oh boy, this is not good, guys. I don't know how this is going to go. And now, my point with that is that Stevie Y made that pick based on his research and his knowledge, and Mo Seider came in last year and won the Calder Trophy, kind of set the NHL on fire. So Stevie Y knows what he's doing. He's got a good game plan in place. The Yzerplan is a thing. The unfortunate thing is it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen over just 1 or 2 or 3 seasons. It's a long road, but we're definitely on the right track. So I'm not ready to say that, we got to put a lid on the Yzerplan or give him any certain amount of time before it's time to call it a failure. I just, like I said earlier, just want to keep seeing improvement in the team, and that's the course we're on right now.
If it was just his legacy as a Detroit Red Wing alone, I would think that Steve Yzerman has the longest leash in the history of sports. I mean, we're talking about one of the greatest, if not the greatest captain in the history of sports. Yankee fans can argue Derek Jeter. But it's not just his legacy here in Detroit. It's what he did in Tampa Bay before he came to Detroit. It's what he turned that franchise into, which is a perennial cup contender, if not winner. That is a Steve Yzerman built franchise down there that is winning all these cups, whether he's still there or not. He put so many of those pieces together that I think that, along with his legacy in Detroit, would lead fans who are so quick to want to get rid of the new regime every single time, whether it's Casey, whether it's Campbell, it doesn't matter. If you're not winning right away, then we need you gone, which makes no sense because we've been so bad for so long. Maybe it's time to have a little bit of patience and see, if these guys know what they're doing. Nothing happens overnight, like you said. I would think that Yzerman would have the longest of leashes for what he has proven in Tampa Bay, along with what he did while here in the D.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's a process, man. The Yzerplan is going to take some time, but the results are already coming in. Lucas Raymond comes in last year. He was a Calder contender. Mo Seider comes in and actually wins the Calder Trophy. And now you see it this year. Elmer Soderblom, who made the team out of camp this year, scored a goal in his first game as a Red Wing. To judge and evaluate a general manager, I think the biggest thing is to see what kind of youth they've incorporated into the organization. And so far, the results are outstanding for Stevie. And that's just going to continue to build a core that the team can build around for the future. So right now, I mean, I don't even want to say that his seat has got any temperature to it because it's just too early on in the game for that. And, the wins are going to come. It might not be quite yet. But like I said, we are 2-0 right now, so that's pretty stinking cool also.
Absolutely.
You mentioned guys like Larkin and Bertuzzi not being under contract. And in the NBA, we see a lot where teams will shed salary, eyeing a certain free agent year so that they can go make a push, to sign LeBron James or something. Is there, if you're going to look in your crystal ball, is there any names like that Red Wings fans can look to in maybe this free agency, next free agency, this trade deadline or whatever, to where, by when time comes for them to maybe make a big move? Who are some guys that Wings fans can, kind of be an eyeing to put on that winged wheel?
Well, that's a really good question, Ryan, man. The thing about it is, first off, we've got to figure out, is Larkin going to be a part of the future? Is Tyler Bertuzzi going to be a part of the future? Because if those guys are not going to be around, those are your first two trade pieces. The unfortunate part is that kind of, if Larkin decides he's not going to be around, he's got a no trade clause, so he's got full control over whatever destination he would want to go to as well. Like I said earlier, I don't think that's going to happen. I think both of those guys are long-term pieces for Detroit. So those guys get taken off the table from any trade discussions. Being this early into the Yzerplan, I think it's too early to start shipping guys out. The guys that Stevie Y has drafted in the prospect pool. I think it's too early on to start moving those guys out for the big-time players. You might wait until this free agency coming up after the season to make a splash. There's some guys that'll be out there like Vlad Tarasenko. I would imagine that you're probably going to be looking at forwards in free agency because the defense has been pretty well. The future has been secured on the blue line in the draft. So maybe you want to make a splash in free agency this year with like a Vlad Tarasenko or whoever the big name free agents are coming up. But I'm not talking about any trades right now, unless it's a guy like a Bertuzzi who decides that maybe I'm not going to be in Detroit for after this season. Other than that, I mean, you start getting your guys up from the prospect pool into the big leagues, and then you can make some minor moves here and there. But as far as trading big pieces or trading for big pieces, I think we're probably a couple of years out on that timeline. So right now we're just going to sit with the prospects and let them get into the NHL.
Am I crazy for thinking that there's no chance Dylan Larkin goes anywhere? We're talking about a Michigan man playing for his hometown team, wearing the captain's C that Steve Yzerman once wore. Like it literally does not compute in my brain that Dylan Larkin would want to, like, if we were still as bad as we've been and going nowhere, yes. But you're talking about the captain of all captains is now running the ship. You are wearing the same C he was wearing. You are from the area. You grew up seeing this greatness in person. Like, it doesn't make sense in my mind that he'd even want to go anywhere else.
Well, and that's all he's saying so far too. We've only heard, I want to stay in Detroit. I don't see myself playing anywhere else. So the words are great to hear, but at the same time, he did go out and hire a new agency firm to represent him in contract negotiations before this season. One that's notoriously much more aggressive in getting their players better value contracts for them, which rightfully so, but at the same time, it kind of casts just that little bit of a shadow of doubt in my mind. Like, if it comes down to dollars and cents for Larkin, we know Steve Yzerman does not budge. When he sets a high limit, and that limit's not going to be beaten. So if Larkin's actually going to try to, hit a certain number, or this new agency group is going to try to hit a certain number, and Stevie says we're not going past, this number, maybe, who thought Matthew Stafford was ever going to play somewhere than Detroit? I don't think it's likely, but until that contract is inked and you see him in the winged wheel for the next few years, it'll be on the table. It'll be talked about.
All right. Well, speaking of Larkin, we know what we've gotten from him in the past. There's something that I haven't seen from him yet, and I want to see is this the year. Is this the year that Larkin hits a point per game?
It should be. He's the guy that progresses every year in his development. His offensive skills can't be questioned. I think when you start looking at overall points for an individual player, though, you got to consider a couple of things, such as teammates, especially line mates. We've seen the Larkin, Raymond, and Bertuzzi line kind of dominate for the last couple of years. 1/3 of that line now is out for the next month, Tyler Bertuzzi. So, there's a lot of guys that are capable of putting the puck in the net on this team now, which is something we haven't said in a long time. So Larkin's got some guys that he can play with and guys that can keep up with him because he's a very fast-paced player. So, if I was going to predict yes or no on that, just straight up, I would say yes. There's a good chance that this will be the year he finally cracks a point per game. You got to imagine Lucas Raymond's going to continue developing after the amazing rookie year that he had last year. And then, who's the other guy on the outside wing going to be on this line with Bertuzzi out? Tonight it's Dominique Kubalik. I don't know if that's going to be a long-term thing, but you've got David Perron on this team now. You've got Philip Zadina. You've got lots of guys to choose from, though. So, Larkin's going to get his goals for sure, and as long as he's able to find teammates that can keep up with him and produce with him on that first line, I'd go 7.5 out of 10 that, yes, this will be a point per game season, Larkin.
What are the biggest areas that the Wings need to improve? So, like, I'm not a hockey guy, but for years I heard get bigger on the blue line, right? So, and like we look at the Detroit Lions, like, all right, their defense is obviously trash. That's where they need to get better. For the Wings, what's the area I guess I need the most improvement?
Well, I think that would be defense. You saw last year with the new goaltending and Alex Nedeljkovic. He's a really good goalie, but man, he gets hung out to dry so often, and that's not a goalie issue, that's a defense issue. The Red Wings were quite capable of putting the puck in the net last year. They scored quite a few goals. They just weren't able to keep the other teams from scoring more goals than them, and in hockey that's a problem. They're constantly getting hemmed into their own zone. They can never get the puck out of the offensive zone, and guys are camping out in front of the goaltenders. Nobody's able to move them. So far through 2 games this year, it's been a little bit different. I mean, you went out and you signed Ben Sherratt. He's there to move bodies, and that's what he does. He even scored a goal, which is like super rare for him. But you got Ali Mata, who's another defenseman, big-bodied guy. He's not going to score you a ton of goals, but he moves bodies. Excuse me. So I think that was a big area of improvement that was recognized, and they did a lot to improve that in the offseason.
Speaking of, you brought up Nedeljkovic. It seems like we got 2 guys vying for, being our netminder going forward. And, we've seen this dance before with multiple, netminders and, who's really going to step up and really take the reins and be that guy going forward for us. We saw Osgood and Vernon way back when. We've seen this play out before. Do you see... I don't want to. I keep forgetting if it's Husso or Husso and Nedeljkovic. Husso, thank you. That's what I thought. Just want to make sure. The 2 S's throws me off. It's European. It's not. If it was an American, it'd be Husso, but he's not American. Right. So Husso or Nedeljkovic. Do you see one of them? I know it's early. We're in our 3rd game right now. But do you see one of them really kind of taking the reins of being the netminder going forward?
It'd be great if one of them would, honestly. Because I mean, it's hard to see. You don't see a whole lot of NHL teams succeed at a high level if you're riding every other game a new goaltender. If one of these guys, I think Husso is probably the guy who was brought in here to be the guy to take it over and run with it. Nedeljkovic is good. Husso is better. If you look at the way that they play, Husso is very positionally sound. The guy, you saw a lot of times last year, Nedeljkovic made a lot of crazy acrobatic saves, which look awesome, but the reason that he has to make those saves is because he's not in the right position. If you look at the highlight reels, and if you've watched any Billy Husso over the last couple of years in St. Louis, he doesn't make a whole lot of crazy, fly across the crease and grab the puck out of midair saves, because he's always in the right spot. So I think if you're going to look at it for just which one is better straight up, that guy is probably Billy Husso, and that's not to take anything away from Nedeljkovic, because like I said, he's very athletic. He's good at the NHL goaltending position. We saw that in Carolina. Unfortunately, we didn't really get a good look at that last year because he was hung out to dry so often this year. And excuse me for just 1 second. I get so amped up about hockey, I lose my voice.
No, we've been there, trust me.
So, like I said, I don't want to take anything away from Nedeljkovic. He's a very good NHL goalie. And now we've got 2 very good NHL goalies. But I think Ville Husso was brought in to be the guy for the job. He got the start on opening night, and he pitched a shutout also, so that didn't hurt his case for that either.
No, definitely not. I mean, it is rare, but we've seen... I think Tampa Bay did it for a little bit. I think Chicago did it for a little bit, where they did have 2 very good goaltenders, and you just kind of had to pick your poison on who was going to be hot that night and ride them out.
Yeah, I mean, it works sometimes. You don't see it happen very often, and I think it's kind of for that reason. Goaltending's, it's hard on its own right, and it's a very feel position. You got to get a good feel for it. If you're not in a good groove, you're not going to stop a lot of pucks. And I think that's kind of why we see NHL goaltenders, 50-30 is a good split for any good season. If you get a Ville Husso playing 50 games, and then you give Nedeljkovic, or whoever it might be, the other 32, that's a pretty fair split, and that's kind of what I'm looking for this year. And it'll be interesting to see what they want to do moving past this year, because Nedeljkovic's contract is up after this year also. So I don't know if he's going to be a guy who's pegged as a career backup goalie or what the plan's going to be there, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out after this season also.
Yeah, I can't wait. Trying to get somebody back there to just be a stone wall.
Shae,
big goons they have.
we got a few new names joining the Wings this year: Jacob Vrana, Andrew Kopp, Dominic Kubalik, David Perry. I mean, and you talked about how the Wings can put the puck in the net. So I wanted to get your assessment on these guys, and can we be expecting 20, 25 goals? Maybe 30 from any of the guys that I just listed.
Well, with the first name you listed there, Jacob Vrana, I actually my 5 bold predictions I wrote for DSN last week, I've got him pegged at 40 goals this year. And then, of course, right after I do that, he misses tonight's game for personal reasons. So hopefully that's not a long-term thing. But, man, that guy has got so much puck skill. I don't see any reason, if he's able to play, 75, 80 games in a season, I don't think it'll be even a struggle for him to hit 40. So that's what I'm looking at for Vrana. I think he's a guy who's going to flirt with 40 goals this season. Dominic Kubalik, you brought him in 2 years ago in his rookie season. He scored 30 goals for Chicago. Then last year he kind of had that sophomore slump and only scored 15. With a lot of talent around him, he could, I don't think it's unfair to expect 20 out of him this season, his first year with Detroit. Andrew Kopp is a guy who hit his career high last year, playing for a couple of different teams. He was traded at the deadline, but he scored 20 goals last season, coming off of an abdominal surgery that he had in the offseason. But, 20 goals for a guy just coming into his prime. He's done it once. I think you can expect about that from him again this season. And I am missing one other person. Who was it? Perron?
Yeah, Perron.
Who flirted with, David Perron almost scored 30 goals last season for St. Louis. And all he's done his whole career is score 25 to 30 goals in a season. So somewhere around that ballpark would probably be a good bet for him as well. The cool thing about it is these guys are all capable of putting the puck in the net, and now they're all on the same team together. So, goal scoring, it sounds so simple, but goal scoring, excuse me, man. It's not easy to score goals in the NHL, actually, but these guys are all really good at that, the guys that they brought in this offseason. And that's the kind of thing that becomes contagious. When you've got guys that know how to put the puck in the net, they're able to find their opportunities, and they're able to make opportunities for other guys, too.
He said puck, Ryan. Calm down.
Might have been close.
It was. I heard the puck. I heard the puck, so we're good.
I don't know. Puckin's a word. Fix that in post.
I don't know. That might be fun actually to start working that into like every show. Telling someone to shut their puck in mouth. You just got to make sure you say it real slow.
It's that first.
All right. Well, Shae, we appreciate you joining us on Griffin and Bass. We're going to have you on a couple more times, obviously, to as the Red Wing season is just underway, and we're going to have a lot more to talk about going forward. We haven't even touched on our new coach, Lalonde. We're definitely going to get into that next time, though. So we'll have you back on next week where we can get some more Red Wings information out there for those that are dying for their ice news. And, appreciate you joining us on Griffin and Bass, and can't wait to have you on again.
Looking forward to it, man. Thanks for having me again. Go Wings.
Yes, sir. Go Wings.
Go watch them because they're losing now.
It's nice.
They stole you away.
See what happens? You can't stop Shae. You gotta at least have the game on like on the side or something.
It's that stinking Ville Husso. Who even brought him to Detroit?
Yeah, right. All right, Shae. We'll see you.
All right, see you guys.
Man,
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Hey, Ryan Griffin here. Thank you so much for watching today's episode of Griffin and Bass. Be sure to give us your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to click the bell to receive the latest notifications from DSN and subscribe for breaking news, community blogs, polls, contests, and other content.